introduce a guest who's also here to try to change the world. Jake?
Yes, Tad Lumpkin is an 11-year veteran of the entertainment business, working on both the executive and creative side of filmmaking. He has produced The American Dream, which is a cartoon short that creatively looks at the money printing practices of the United States. Tad, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks a lot for joining us. We had a great guest in Dr. Woods, and I'm very pleased that you were also able to take the time with us today. And our show, Meltdown, really kind of goes through a lot of the, really what Walt was just talking about before the break, with the whole idea of inflation, you know, with it being mainly related to the money printing practices of our government, and the fact that just a lot of people in the United States don't really have too much of are not completely educated on this whole thing, as well as the stability of the dollar. But Tad, I was wondering if you could tell us a bit about your film, your motivation in producing the film, and also what makes it unique.
Well, the reason that we made it is sort of kind of what it's about. I mean, basically, we felt like there was a pantheon of issues that I was frustrated with, as well as my creative partner. But we felt like that the mystery of the Federal Reserve being something that moved markets and that affected everybody, and pretty much everybody knew the word Federal Reserve, and maybe they knew that it affected their mortgage if they moved the rates up and down. But people, this hugely powerful institution, I mean, hardly anybody really knows how the thing works, yet everybody knows that it exists and that their money somehow comes from there. So we were like, people got to understand how this works, because if they do, I think they're going to have they're going to go from not caring at all to caring immensely about it, and seeing how all these systemic issues that we're slapping Band-Aids on with stimulus and tariffs and price controls and currency fixing and all these things that we try and run around the world with bailouts and bandage up the symptoms of this broken machine inherently happen because we have a broken system. And we wanted to come up with a funny, entertaining, short way to emotionally evoke people. At the end, they'd have enough of a framework to understand how it works, but we wanted to get people fired up to go learn more and then get involved. And because we felt like at the basis of all economies is the medium of exchange. If your money's rotten, your economy's going to be rotten. So that's why we felt like it was such an important issue, and we wanted to give it a treatment like it's never had before.
Right, and I was wondering if you could go a little bit into the whole plot, because again, the film, which you can check out on theamericandreamfilm.com, it kind of takes the tactic of using like a clueless type Joe Sixpack type fellow, and kind of turn it into an adventure instead of just going at it and blasting away like a school lesson or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, kind of the way that we looked at it was, we kind of used the formula of sort of the Ghost of Christmas Past, where you've got the misled or misguided, character who needs to be taken on the journey to have a self-realization at the end. And when we thought about how to structure it, we wanted to educate people, so we felt like it needed to have that, but at the same time, we also wanted to do it in a narrative style, not just a documentary style. We wanted to engage people into a story, and we wanted to have, tension and drama, not just be a regurgitation of, this stuff's already out there. There's 50 documentaries. You can go on the internet tomorrow and punch it in. You can find stuff that tells you how money's generated, but it's like there's a limited audience for that stuff, and we're trying to get outside the people who are already aware. So we were like, what if we do it and say, we take the humor of South Park, which reaches like tons of people, and we take like what Schoolhouse Rock did, and just take the simplicity of how Schoolhouse Rock gave you the framework of how a bill became a law or whatever, but we wrap it in the kind of agitative, provocative, snarky package that South Park does. And we wanted to make a really relevant kind of social commentary / documentary on how this stuff works. But we sort of wanted to blend different styles and genres to pull it off. And the guy goes through, the journey, and at the end he figures out how it works, and now he's enlightened, and now he's ready to join the fight to awaken others and change the world.
Right, and the way you do it's highly entertaining. And again, the film is available for viewing for free on YouTube. The entire movie's on our show's website right now, which is freedomnewshour.com. And you can also watch it on your website, theamericanfilm.com. I was wondering, Tad, if you could go into, with the Provocateur Network, if you go into the details of, who also was involved beside yourself, and who kind of got this whole project rolling, and, where things are going into the future.
Well,
any
basically
film screenings or that type of thing.
Yeah. Well, a great film screening we actually have coming up is next Thursday. We're going to be screening the film at CPAC, which Young Americans for Liberty is sponsoring, and we're doing it before the Campaign for Liberty event kicks off. Ron Paul will be speaking right after we show the film, so that's kind of a cool event. That's really the next and only screening we have set up at this point, but hopefully we'll have more of those coming up in the future. Basically the Provocateur Network is myself and my creative partner on this, Harold Yule. And what happened was we had the genesis. This is something I've been interested in, and I kind of called up Harold, who's a writer and a friend of mine, and I said, "Hey man, I got this idea to do this thing. What do you think?" And then we just both sat down and started writing it out, and we finished it. Well, since we did that, we sort of said, well, why can't we do a whole bunch of different things? Like, we could do things from 5 minutes to 30 minutes to, we even have a feature-length idea that basically takes all the ideas of philosophies of liberty, like how do you approach guns, prohibition, free trade, capitalism, socialism, why doesn't healthcare work like this, education, this, all this stuff everybody argues over. We believe we can tell the story of pretty much every one of these issues in a way that you'll get 80% of America to be on the same side. And we think that a lot of the divisiveness is because people are really misled on the issues, and they really don't understand them, and they've been more caught up in the rhetoric and the bullet points, and it's like, hey, I like Barack Obama, I'm for hope and change. You're a bad guy because you're for, some down-home, George Bush, let's blow everybody up. Well, in reality, both those attributes, it's like, Obama's running around, he's expanded the war state. Bush passed one of the biggest social expansions in social welfare in the history of America. So I don't really understand how George Bush hates poor people and Barack Obama hates war. It's like, that's completely ridiculous. And so we're just kind of trying to show people the truth is the tie that binds, not these politicians' slogans that everybody seems to emotionally get behind.
It's interesting you mentioned war and the various aspects of war, because toward the end of your cartoon, you actually have your characters taking up arms, which I thought was a rather controversial ending. Why did you decide to go with that route?
Well, I mean, look, here's the thing. We didn't make something to be a let me try to think of the word, an academic documentary. We're not endorsing violence. That's not what, we're not saying violence is the answer to this thing. But what we are saying is, like, we are going at the system. We're the Provocateur Network. I mean, look at how basically every animated show on television attacks things. They're pointed, they're sharp, they're like, get up in these people's face. That's what we want people to do. I mean, the scene is a recreation of 300, which was an immensely popular scene. Anybody who's seen that movie, and especially in our target audience, knows that scene is an exact replica of that scene, and it was meant to spoof it. It wasn't meant to be an original piece that says, hey, take up arms at the end. It's meant to be like, guys, get up and fight and do something about this. It's like, wake up and let's go get in these people's face. It's like, stop being nice. but it wasn't a call to arms, hey, violence is the only solution, grab your gun and go do something.
That's a good point. And also, I don't want to wreck the film for any of our folks in the audience that might be listening that'll be watching it, but the film that you have, the cartoon, also uses spoofs from other films that are pretty well known as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we wanted to use with pop culture. But, I mean, the thing is we're doing a pop culture narrative piece, you know what I mean? And if you watch anything in that genre that's on network or cable television, I mean, we're tame as hard as we pushed it. But the thing is it's like, we're not having, this isn't Sunday morning chit-chat on CNN. I mean, we're trying to motivate people emotionally a little bit more than that. Again, no violence, but at the same time, we are for civil disobedience. I mean, I love people who want to opt out of the screenings, at the airport, the TSA screenings. It's like, I wish everybody just stand up and go, hell no. Don't do anything violent, but that type of civil disobedience is healthy. That's what refreshes the tree of liberty, and that's what we keep telling everybody is it's like, dude, we don't need a revolution. I mean, I sure hope not, but we need a political and thought revolution. We don't need a take-to-the-streets revolution.
Yeah, we need to get rid of the Republicrats, if you ask me. But Ben Bernanke, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, he gave a speech today at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., and one of the things that he spoke about was overall inflation, and he said his, quote, overall inflation remains quite low. Over the past 12 months, ending in December, prices for all goods and services purchased by households increased by only 1.2%, down from 2.4% over the past 12 months. And then he goes, core inflation was only 0.7% in 2010, compared with 2.5% in 2007, the year before the recession began. Wage growth has slowed as well. It kind of eludes them that Americans don't really have jobs anymore, or a very high percentage, with hourly earnings increasing only 1.8% last year. But what Walt and I were talking about, and Gene, before we came on, was not just gasoline, which has obviously gone up to anybody who drives a car, but the price of eggs and bread and all these things that people need to get by to live on have really been increasing, and things that kind of went into a bubble phase, such as housing, that are also really kind of the only things going down at this point. And I was wondering, on your website, theamericanfilm.com, you have lots of educational information and suggestions, how to take action. I was wondering if you could offer, some suggestions for our audience on how to, protect themselves from the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, well, I mean, one thing, just two comments on that. Number one, if anybody wants to take the time to read how the genesis of how government numbers are reported and what those inflation numbers actually are, and the use of geometric weighting and hedonics to formulate a number that is what they want it to be, not what reality is government numbers from unemployment to GDP to all those numbers are, why don't you just take random numbers and stick them in a hat and pull them out? Because that's about how meaningful those numbers actually are. And the more you get into it, it's laughable that they even can sit up there with a straight face and tell you, what this stuff is. I mean, they sit there and tell you because a computer got twice as fast that somehow now it costs half as much. They tell you that, even though most people spend their money on gas and food and school and health care, and all those have gone up immensely. I mean, has education done anything but go straight up? Has health care done anywhere but straight up? My question is, where do you spend your money? You know what I mean? It's great that we have a $200 cell phone, and I think that's amazing, but when you break out where all the money's going and how much it costs to live in society, it's absolutely 100% gone up, and they rig the numbers. Number two is that if you look at what's happening right now and this whole argument to rebalance the currencies with China, that again is China right now is importing our inflation. Look at their prices. They have got a massive bubble over there in real estate and all sorts of stuff, and they're exporting us their cheap goods. We've printed all this money, and what's happened is because everybody's in this these exporting countries like the Brazils and the Chinas, they are basically...
Unfortunately, I have to cut you off there because we're out of time for the hour here, but we want to thank you very much for joining us. And let's mention the website one more time.
It's the AmericanDreamFilm.com, and we have lots of information on there, and I just say stay diversified and buy things you need.
Well, we'll have to have you again on the show later on, and that's it for this week. It's
Thanks
the
so much,
News
Dad.
Hour, Surviving Meltdown. Goodbye, everybody.
But when you talk about destruction, don't you know that you can count